guys, and welcome to the 16th episode of the Women in Nautica podcast. This is a special one, not only because it marks the mid of our sailing series, but also because today on air with me, I have Dee Caffari tuning in with a lot of interesting insights in the sailing world. Dee, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good timing.
Yes, perfect timing. So I'm sure we will get to that a bit later in the conversation. But of course, we have to start with the basic questions. And that's if you can introduce yourself and tell a bit to the audience about your academic background and how it led you to where you currently are.
Yeah, so I'm Dee Caffari. I'm based in the UK and I'm a professional sailor, but I started my career as a school teacher of 11 to 18-year-olds. I taught physical education and mathematics. I did that for about 5 years and then I had a career change and went into the world of water sports. And it was offshore sailing that really kind of ignited something deep inside. And I reassured my mother at the time with the career change that I could always go back to teaching. But I've been lucky, I haven't had to go back. I now just go back to get children excited and to think of more opportunities that are out there, but then walk away. So I've now sailed around the world 7 times and have a few records. So I packed quite a lot into a short space of time. But I deeply passionate about the ocean, its environment, and the opportunities it can give. And I realized that as a female in a very male-dominated industry, I have a level of responsibility to help facilitate change for the future so that we can future-proof our sport for the whole population, not just 50% of the population.
That's great, especially that you can give back to the community in different ways. So not only to empower women, but also to get kids on board, which nowadays I think with everyone using only AI and social media, it's very important that we get kids out there in nature.
That's right. I mean, that's the one thing that AI can't replace is the sensation of the nature around you when you're fully immersed and there's no other alternatives. You got to dig deep inside to find the solutions.
Sure. And I think that maybe some of the solutions you found out brought you to your very significant introduction, as we can read online, the first woman to sail solo non-stop around the world in both directions. So regarding this solo voyage, what is the easy and what is the tough part, especially being a leader in that field?
Yeah, and it's interesting when you attach leadership when everyone says, but it's a solo voyage because it still is a form of leadership because there's a big team behind you that get you to the start line. Fundamentally, you're the only person on the boat, so you have to be proactive and achieve everything. But there's a lot of support behind you. And that could be partners giving financial support, that could be team members preparing for the voyage. And then that support, both emotionally and technically, that get you round and to the finish line. And behind that is good communication because it's almost harder in a way when people aren't there with you to experience what you're experiencing and to understand how you're feeling at the time. So you need very good communication, very clear communication. It's essential that you have good clarity and honesty. So there's that level of transparency and trust because, they're trusting me to do the job, but I'm trusting them to give me the right answers too. So it's definitely a two-way feedback loop. And I think that makes you it's very good transferable skills to leadership when people are with you and you're face to face with them as well.
And can you share which people are part of that team? Who makes up the team that supports you?
Yeah, it's interesting. And it was very clear roles, as in I had the perfect boat captain that prepared the boat and thought of all the what if scenarios and had all the technical advice prepared. And so, day or night, he would know exactly what I was carrying, how to carry out the fix, and, make it very clear for me to do, no matter how tired or emotional I was. But as soon as I got emotional when I was talking to him, he was like, whoa, wrong person. And actually, it's my partner that I've been together with him in excess of 25 years now. and he suffered through all the round the world. So he's seen the good, the bad, the ugly, the high points, the low points, and the self-doubt, the stress, and he's kind of got me through the other side. And even now, I can be having a bad day and he'll just know what to say. And most of the time it's just listening. Like they don't have to come up with the magic answer, but you need to know that you have a sounding board that will be objective and not subjective.
And would you say, would it be difficult to do it if you were alone in case you didn't have a partner in terms of emotional support?
I think so. And I think even down to my most recent round the world, there were 8 of us on the boat, but you still need somebody that's external to just kind of vent to or to have your back or to just kind of be that person that's, doesn't change, is always constantly there, that constant in your life that keeps you grounded. And, I said to the girls, especially we had 3 that were going around the world for the first time. I said it's very important that you have somebody there that you can just chat with that isn't connected, isn't going to be judgmental or make comment, but you can just kind of have your grounding and your constant background noise that's something that's good for you.
I like it. I think that's an advice people can take not only for sailing around the world, but generally in life. And
Absolutely. And that's what's interesting with sailing. So many lessons learned or tricks and tips that you get are so transferable to the workplace. I go into businesses and I was like, basically, you're sailing around the world, you just don't know it.
yeah, well, that's an idea for a future motivational course, right?
That's right. In fact, I could just put that on the title of my new book.
Exactly. And when it comes to racing, what was your most demanding race and what was the most enjoyable one and why?
It's very interesting when, I do a mixture of round the world races and then short course races. And I consider the short course races most people's offshore race. So it's what you're used to. And quite often the extreme highs are given because you've had an extreme low. So when you ask for the most difficult or the most enjoyable, quite often they're the same thing. And because you've been in such a difficult, dark place, and then you've come out the other side and it's euphoric. So you remember it for both reasons. I've been very lucky that 7 laps, no 2 have been the same. So each one has had a different objective, a different boat, or a different format. So whether that's being part of a team or leading a team or doing something for the first time, not knowing if it was possible. So, I've been very lucky in that respect. It's not been a repetitive environment that I've been in, but I've created a lot of those opportunities myself. And I think it's really important you remember your objective and your why, why you chose to be there. When you're wet, cold, and miserable, why did you put yourself there?
Mm.
And the bad bits are very short-lived compared to the good bits. And, it doesn't take long before one of those comes along and you're like, oh yeah, this is why I love it here. And despite how difficult it can feel at times, if you put the right people around you, be that on board the boat with you or with your objective person that you can kind of use as a sounding board, they get you through because they know just the right things to say or when to not say anything and just listen. And I think if you surround yourself with the right people, you'll be surprised what you can achieve.
Yeah, and it all comes down to people. It ends up being a bit less of the material technical part and more to people. But looking at the other side of things, how do you see the development of competitive sailing going? And in the years, are there any new trends which are already impacting it?
I think it's an exciting space to be in. It's a very technical sport, but it doesn't have to be. So you can come in at any level, whether you're cruising, having a holiday for the first experience of sailing, or you're just going from the beach on a little boat for a couple of hours, right through to it's like motorsport industry and aerospace have come to sailing. And these boats are now involving flying, they're foiling, they're above the water. And it's a whole, almost a new sport, but that's the beauty of the sport of sailing is that it's so diverse. Whether you're an Olympic sailor a round the world offshore sailor, and everything in between, whether you're a holiday maker trying it for the first time or whether you've built your career on it. And there's something for everyone. And on a boat, there's also a job for everybody. Whether you're the strong person, whether you're the brains of the operation, whether you're somebody that can multitask, there's something for everyone. And I think that's the depth of the sport as well. So I always say to people when they go, oh, I don't know if it's for me. And I go, well, just, try it, but make sure it's a positive experience. There's plenty of times when you can be wet, cold, and scared, but there's also times when it can be warm, sunny, a lot of fun, a lot of enjoyment. And it's important for people to experience the positive side and then understand the wide range available to them. And then, kind of pick something that works for you. Not everyone's going to sail around the world, but equally, not everyone's going to go to the Olympics.
Exactly. It's all about coming out of your own box and testing where your boundaries are. And if you never try, you never know. It's both with maybe not the Olympics, but like at least sailing, everyone can try in their life once.
Exactly. And there's so many opportunities to see places. I sail past a lot of places, but I also take the opportunity when I can to go and sail in some amazing places. And it's like taking your hotel room to a different location every day. And you wake up and you look out the window and you get a different view. I mean, that's the beauty of sailing. So it's, you have to just think of it in different ways and you can go to some incredible places.
And that actually is the perfect intro for my next question. And that is, how does sailing for pleasure look for you? And talking about destinations, are there any favorite of yours?
So I'm getting aware that I'm very lucky because I get to sail in some great places. But a lot of the time I sail past all these places. So there's so much on my bucket list still to see. But I think, whether it's local base, so on my own south coast of the UK, or whether it's in the Mediterranean, just a short haul flight away. There's some lovely weather and there's some beautiful locations with great food and people. I got better at sailing for pleasure. At first, I thought I had to spend all my time trimming and sail for like 12 hours a day. And actually, it's not about the sailing, it's about the journey to the destination and exploring the people and the places. And that's what sailing gives you the ability to do, is to meet the people and the places. You tie up at the town quay and you walk along, and there's bars and restaurants and supermarkets, and you meet the local people when they help you tie up. They give you directions. It's that integrating into a new world. So, whether it's the Caribbean, whether it's the Seychelles, or whether it's the Mediterranean, there's like just so much to see. And I've barely scratched the surface of cruising for pleasure. I maybe hopefully will try more of it.
I mean, there's still time to fill at least, one bucket destination per month or per year, who knows? And now off to a different concept, and that is safety on board, which quite often can get neglected. So how do you profile not only your needs, but how do you also advocate for safety through the work of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution?
Yeah, I mean, safety has got to be paramount. When you're sailing, you become very aware that if it goes wrong, it goes really wrong really quickly. And all the hindsight of, oh, we should have done that, it's too late. And I'm very strong advocate for doing the safety courses with the team that you're about to go sailing with. You're about to embark on this amazing adventure, but it only works if everybody can be safe and confident and trust each other. So the last thing we did on the most recent round the world was do a sea survival course together, because it's a little bit of team building, but it was about learning to trust each other, learning to trust the equipment. A lot of people carry equipment and they don't even know how it's used, and just making sure that it becomes a normalized thing and not an exceptional thing to do. To wear your life jacket or to clip on or to have your safety gear in your pockets. That should just be normal. And I think the more you do, the more that is the case. I think it's only the exceptional people that don't do it very often think, oh, I'm fine. but it only takes one slip, it only takes one wave, it only takes one movement of the boat and somebody not to be looking, and then suddenly it's a much bigger problem than you first realized. I mean, we're very lucky in the UK. We have the RNLI, the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, and that's full of volunteers that just give their time to save lives at sea. And I always laughed and I said, I love the work they do, but I hope I never have to use them. And I think there's rescue services around the world that are there if you need them. And you really don't want to add to their duty and be that person in trouble. And it would look awful if I was one of those people. So I'm very much, take a moment, think twice, and then act once.
So you think there is still quite a lack of awareness in that segment? People still need to take safety more seriously.
I think there's a lot more awareness than there used to be. And I think that there's a changing trend where it's a little bit like skiing or winter sports, where before nobody wore a helmet and everybody went skiing and snowboarding. And now you look the silly person if you don't wear a helmet.
Exactly.
And I think that's actually transferred to sailing a bit more. Like today's world, you're the exception if you're not wearing a life jacket. And I think that's better. And it's led by the professionals that are seen. And we have a lot of organizations that organize races that enforce rules. And I think because we do a lot of them, we don't see it as any different.
And are you per se engaged in any other organization which you would like to share?
Well, I work a lot with Ocean Safety, who are a safety equipment supplier, and I talk to them through the the equipment list that we have that we use. I ran my sea survival course with them so that we could use the equipment we had on board. But also, we work then with World Sailing. I sit on the Oceanic and Offshore Committee, and also part of that is we have to approve the special offshore regs that come up with, once there's an incident, then you take the lessons from it and we implement changes to make sure that we can keep our sport as safe as possible. So, it's really invaluable. I'm still out on the water using all this gear. So it's quite nice to be an advocate of it and work closely with the organizations because I'm giving them real feedback from, well, when we used it, it didn't work or it didn't feel right or it's not comfortable. And then we can make better decisions going forwards.
I see. And you said about keeping sailing as safe as possible. What about making it as sustainable as possible? Of course, sailing per se is sustainable because you're not using any other type of propulsion, but we all know that anything that requires manufacturing has a certain toll on the environment. So where do you see sustainability taking place in competitive racing?
I think it's interesting. It's a very tricky subject that has been brought up, and I think it reached a peak and now it seems to be going down. But I think the fundamentals are still very much in everyone's mind. Yes, we harness the power of nature, but yes, we cook carbon machines in big autoclave ovens with resin and or even cruising boats with fiberglass that can't be broken down. So, we have a lot of faults within our system. You look at dinghy parks and they're just full of old dinghies rotting that aren't being recycled or reused or passed on. And I think it's really interesting. I think manufacturers are being asked to, what are they going to do about this? And you see a lot of the sail designers now thinking differently about their waste, about their green credentials, and about what they can do. And we're seeing some of the leading lights, be it, for example, the IMOCA class. There's a certain level, if you build a new boat, you have to have a certain amount of life cycle assessment done, and you have to meet a threshold. You also need to have renewable energy on board, and you also need to have what they call green sails, but made from a certain level of recycled fibers. And I think this is all helping because all of the elite filters down over time. And it's little things like it's fashionable to use the bags made from old sails. We're seeing it right at that extreme and obviously at the elite level of the sport. But I think there's more that can be done. And I think it needs legislating. I think it needs more highlighting and more kind of governance as well to hold people accountable.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. The actions are here and steps are being taken, but it can all be much more professional, much more advanced in any segment of sustainability in general in the boating industry.
Yeah, I think the holdback is quite often the costs. It often makes things more expensive, and it's already deemed quite an expensive hobby or pastime for people to get involved in. So you don't want that to be a limiting factor. So I think we need to do better at it so that it isn't cost prohibitive to do, and therefore it makes the sport more attractive. But it keeps, the turnover and the increase in numbers that we want to see into our sport.
But do you think it's now more accessible to people than it was maybe 15 years ago?
I think there is I've got no numbers to clarify this, but I feel that we've got rid of this perception of our sport, of it being expensive, inaccessible, and elite. And we're starting to show that you can access sailing and the water at a much easier level. Whether you don't need the funds, you don't need your own boat, but there are abilities or pathways into experiencing our sport. And I think even down to holidays now, any holiday is expensive. So suddenly, why not do something that's very different where you can put a group of people on one vessel and change the location of your hotel room and have an adventure of a lifetime? Suddenly when it's explained better, like I think we communicate about our sport better so people see the opportunities.
Nice. There is always one question that we wrap up our episodes with, and that is what empowerment tip would you give to young people? So both men and women, doesn't necessarily have to be gender centered, looking to get on the water or just like work in the industry or maybe be part of your team. Who knows?
Yeah, I think my advice, I think is every day is a school day. I mean, I still learn. Every time I go out on the water, it's an opportunity to learn. And you learn from the boat you're sailing on, you learn from the people you're sailing with, you learn things that you like, but you also learn what you don't like or what doesn't work. So again, a two-way feedback thing, but don't say no to opportunities. Say yes, and you will get such a range of experience that can only help you develop as a sailor as well. And then maybe I'll see you on my team next time.
Amazing. That would be so nice if any of the listeners actually took upon that. Hopefully. Dee, where can people follow you and your work and your voyages?
Yes, I always try and keep everyone updated with my social channels. So you'll find them. I'm pretty much Dee Caffari on all of them, and obviously my website as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time today. And for everyone listening, you can stay tuned for the next episodes coming up next month. Meet us in any of the upcoming boat shows. Go to www.womeninNautica.com to follow our newsletter. And stay tuned, of course, for the next conference, which is taking place on the 3rd of December and 4th of December back in Croatia. Thank you, Dee, once again, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye.